I'm not sure whether I prefer to see them like that, closed and trim, or open and virtually desecrated and falling into ruin, but used, presumably. Organized religion as against disorganized and vagrant religion. Things are starting to open out now. You can see across the hills of the Lot Valley to the valley of the Sale now, and beyond that to the Coast de Gramat, and beyond that still further to the east. Maybe it's a continuation of the coast, but I'm not confined to any one valley now. And here we are, up with stony paths and cicadas and blue butterflies and bramble and stunted juniper and more piles of stones. And the sun. Hot, coming down, and the scabious, which I knew what that blue butterfly was. This is the year I ought to do the vendange, head for Bordeaux, keep on the G65 and get down that way and be down there in time for the picking, because I'm fit for it now if I'm ever fit for it. A shame. That was interesting. I saw a bloke up ahead of me who seemed to be staggering in a somewhat sort of drunken fashion, I thought, and also had two Alsatians with him, which made me particularly apprehensive if the guy wasn't in control. Anyway, I made a big sort of scuffling noise to make sure he knew I was coming. And he turned round as one of the Alsatians came towards me and said, "Don't be afraid, they're all right." And I drew abreast with him and started talking with him. And it turned out that he'd retired down to Le Pop with his wife, having been forcibly retired, as I imagine they all are, from air traffic control at Orly. He was mainly on nights, he said, bringing in flights from all over France, all over the world, I should imagine. Très fatigant pour la tête, I should think it was too. He looked reasonably well and hale and hearty, but an intelligent man. I should think a job like that's a bit like having to do a sports program link-up like Dickie Davis does, with information coming at you from all angles, having to talk on 3 different phones, speak to someone as well at the same time, receive information on paper, and so on. mental juggling. When I come to think of it, the influences in the terms of teaching were all prep school influences. The masters at Cahors just gave us absolute crap, or had no stature. I was thinking in terms of Pilgrim's Progress. I remember Malcolm Archibald was responsible for us reading that. I mean, and he was certainly no literary man, so anti-intellectual, really. But nevertheless, that's what we did with him. Those marvellous sessions reading Shakespeare with Wedgwood Ben, who would be asleep halfway through, but all of us could take part and read it, probably terribly, but at least we read them, and it was fun. I mean, he wasn't pulling us up all the time. There was that strange man called Whedon, who scarcely spoke a word to anyone, as far as I could see. He seemed to be suffering from some dreadful and awful pain of the heart. Whether it was a lady, I don't know, but his English lessons were full of readings from D.H. Lawrence, things like Snake and modern English. Just to name three, I can't remember a single person at Charterhouse who put me onto anything that mattered at all. The house library was full of rubbish, and the school library was full of standard texts, medieval history and Dickens and the stuff that was being pushed at them at the turn of the century, probably. No excitement about anything modern, and for Christ's sake, it was in the 1950s that I'm talking about. And Evelyn Waugh and Betcham and people like that were getting excited about Eliot and so on 30, 40 years earlier. You wouldn't think they'd have existed. Way high up now. I was saying that I'm really high up now, and I can look out towards the east and over towards what might be the Roerg, or even in the far distance the Aubrac. Although I think it's possibly too far south, if it's south of the Lot, but it's hard to tell. It's also hard to tell how far in distance that is away. There's a village I can see on a hillside in the far distance. My time is in days, and therefore my distance is in days. So I don't know. Anyway, walking up through a tunnel of scrub oak and wild cherry, and the wild cherries are red on the tree and dark red on the ground where they're strewn all over the path. The maize is given to the cows. It's a whole pile of it being eaten by some Frisians just there. Surprised to see Frisians as high as this, in fact. But there's a meadow being carved out of the stony ground, and everywhere you can see just huge piles of stones. The amount of time it must have taken and patience to clear just these small spaces. That's why the walls are so thick. I'm sure I was right. Once again, a junction where it's impossible to tell which way to go, and no sign even further on down the line on this one. Try the map. This is the country of the Foix Gras, the country of the Oi. Wa. I was looking at some of the tins. There are just tins and tins of it. Foix this, and with the most expensive is Foix in entier, which is extremely expensive. A small tin can cost you 10, 15 quid. I mean small too. But I intend at least to try it before I leave, probably in Cahors, or else buy a tin. But somehow it seems more civilized to eat it in a restaurant. Better get the map out and have a look. This is also the country of the Mass, M-A-S, which is the English equivalent would be, I suppose, a manor, just the isolated farm. There's Mass everywhere in this area. Just past one. I think I know where I am, roughly. So I'm going to plough on in the direction I've taken. There have been some chevaliers moving along ahead of me on this route. I wonder if they'll end up at the Gîte at Cahors. But the way the hooves are dug in here, they were moving at least a trot. So maybe they're off to some further destination. I think they rather fancy themselves, the Chevalier Brigade. They certainly dress up very nattily. And I think they see themselves in some sort of a medieval romantic sense, and why not? Because I suppose, I do as a pilgrim on this route. So they see themselves as the knights, and we're the poor pilgrims. Two men and a young boy just came thundering past on a whacking great tractor, an old thing. I didn't catch the name of it. Having a really good time. Probably had one over the top at lunchtime, I expect. He's zooming down this track. I think I'm not far from Cahors now. It's been good walking this since we got out of La Pop. There's nothing in Cahors. I thought I saw the spire of a church, but obviously not. But there, a few minutes later, is the spire of a church, and that will be Concorde. Looking at these vegetable gardens, the one thing they don't seem to grow is onions. Or have they already harvested them? The reason I notice is that that's the one thing that I can always use if I'm reduced to making a soup. And greetings, GR65, the route of Saint-Jacques. We are back together again. On the edge of this little town. A pilgrim crossed to greet me. An old friend. Fancy I was waxing a bit lyrical there. Found the gîte. It's surprising, even in a small village like this, and this isn't big at all, how few people actually know of its existence. I asked one old lady, she didn't know. I asked 3 old men sitting outside in the shade under a tree, they didn't know. I asked 3 young girls who appeared from the alimentation, and they did suggest trying the auberge, which is where I came, and which is where, in fact, the gîte is. It's really only one room, which has 2 double bunks in it. So, let's hope for everyone's sake that not too many people turn up tonight. It seems to be de rigueur to do it in pitch pine, tongue and groove in gîte. It's a sort of country thing, I think. But what a smashing little place, and how nice the people were when I turned up at the auberge. There were 2 men sitting at the far end of the veranda, and one of them was obviously the chef, the young man, and I should say that probably the other one was the patron. And the chef knew immediately, he was a youngish bloke, what I wanted. Took me through the hotel, which looks extremely nice. It's Logis de France. Up the stairs and into this small room, which could be just an ordinary single room with shower and toilet, which is probably what it was before they turned it into this 4-bedroom gîte. And it's got everything I need, and there's a little cooker outside the door, and the chef rushed off and bought me a huge great towel. As I said, I need the shower. Couldn't have been more helpful, really nice. And if no one else turns up, I've got the equivalent of a double room with shower and toilet for £3. I really ought to eat here. I don't think, being Logis de France, that I probably will. They're usually slightly pricey for my means, or intended means at the moment. And also I discovered that the alimentation is open if I just press the bell. So I'll wander down in a minute. I'll probably take a sneak look at the menu on the way out. If there's something really good, I might eat here, but it'd be best to eat in, I think. Eat cooked for myself. And what a lovely walk it's been too. Arrived about 4:45. It's 5:30 now. The sun's still shining out there. I've got a window. It's a low window below the level of my waist, as it were, on floor level, and the sloping pitch pine roof is sloping, supported by exposed beams. But everything I could possibly need. Auberge de Ménil, M-E-S-N-I-L. Do not forget that name. There were such nice people there. I'm just leaving Concorde, 8:37 in the morning, past the sign saying Concorde with the red line through it, which means that's it for the village. It's a superb morning, beautiful, fresh, not a cloud in the sky, blue all over, and it's the ideal start for what may very well be the last day's walking, I think, to Cahors. The people in the hotel, as I was saying, they're so nice. They were all busy in the kitchen when I came down. I wondered if there was anyone about. How foolish can you get? They were 4 or 5 of them in the husband, the wife, young boy, and a girl, I think, all getting ready for today. And I told him I wanted to pay, and he gave me the bill, and we started talking, and he was telling me about various people like myself who have come through, and he said there was one German who was doing 40 kilometers a day, and he looked at me, and I said, well, I think, I said, c'est fou. And he laughed and he agreed. He said it's necessary to stop and look around sometimes and enjoy it. I said, absolutely, absolutely. And then it transpired that he'd had one lot of guests, obviously a French teacher in England, who came from Yorkshire. I told him I came from Yorkshire. And so he got out all this folder of stuff on Yorkshire with places, guides to Whitby and Scarborough and Harrogate. And then insisted on making me a massive great ham sandwich, jambon, which is now nestling on top of my pack. Made sure, absolutely sure I got on the right road, and shook me warmly by the hand and sent me on my way. What a lovely place. I said, je retournerai, and I, if I possibly can, I will. Christ, the air is like champagne this morning. It's absolutely magnificent. Never was there a more perfect morning. It'll get hot later on, but now, and I've got the sun behind me. Marvellous. Good to be alive. He'd been in the Merchant Navy, the chef. He said he'd been all over the world, but never to England. But he is hoping to get over next year, he said. He's such an enthusiastic man. Couldn't do enough. Well, that's interesting. There's a pilgrim cross there by the roadside, and I'm not actually now following the official footpath. Sometimes I do think they've artificially created bits and pieces of the 65 for some reason. This seems the obvious route to Cahors if you were doing a pilgrimage. It isn't. It's not quite direct, but let's see if there are any more. There's another one here, but there was a painted sign, not the GR signs, pointing to the left, so maybe the old pilgrim route went up through to the left here. I should have said this is Monday, 7th of September. Forgot. Still the same landscape of scrub oak and juniper. You can hear the buzzards crying over this sort of country. Cry of a woodpecker, green woodpecker, rinsing and ringing through the woods. The inevitable jay. Must be one of France's most common birds, I think. I've got mixed and opposite feelings today. When it's like this, I just don't want it to stop. And yet also, to reach Cahors will be an achievement that I've wanted, and I'm excited about the prospect of that. This morning when I woke up, I was just a trace of nervousness, almost like a finals of anything. And I was awake slightly earlier. And there's the village, the church at Cremp on the hill just over across this small valley, standing up proud in the sunlight. And this marvellous blue sky. There's a complete calmness this morning as well. Almost total quiet, which is beautiful. I've seen no animals, no farm stock, no people, except just out of the village, way back in a couple of cars. Just beautiful quietness. The soft cooing of a wood pigeon. Just on the edge of Cremp now. And looking back the way I've come and to the east, it's not a vast horizon, but all I can see is a foaming sea of green. This scrub oak, light where the sun is on it and dark green where the shadows still lie. You wouldn't think there was anything in between, but there are in fact these small little meadows that they've carved out of the hills. There's a wayside cross here, wooden, or perhaps it's not meant to be a cross, I don't know. The wooden sort of fencing post with a cross piece put on it. It's funny talking about Yorkshire to that guy, the chef, and walking into this village is a little bit like walking into somewhere like Appleton Le Moors on the North York Moors. It's the sort of wide open grass verges, which they always have up there, leading back to the houses, and an upland feel about it. There's views for the valleys beyond, and there's a statue here. How lovely. A flock of sheep coming along towards me, bells ringing. Again, the Yorkshire moors. Bonjour, monsieur. And so they go down the village street with the farmer riding his bike and sticking his hand in a couple of small mongrels as sheepdogs. And another of those poles sticking up with bottles on it. It actually says on it, on notre mère, M-A-I-R-E, which I suppose it does mean it's a marriage, an indication of how many years you got married, and you start off with the pole. I don't know quite where that would come into the day's proceedings, but then thereafter you stick a bottle on it every year on your wedding anniversary. That's what I'm assuming anyway. This is an ultra-modern, Moorish style little building house here. On the edge of the village. Built in stone, but still has that North African kind of feel about it. I don't know why. I like the village though, definitely. Nice open feel about it. Nothing spectacular, nothing at all, but just open, quiet, unpretentious. No cafe, no bar, nothing. If you were to live in that sort of village, that wouldn't be a bad one. You're not far from Cahors. There's a field of vines there on my left as I leave the village. And pilgrims must have used this route because I've been more. There were 2 more stone crosses just back there. Tree laden with apples here. Unfortunately, not eatable, I don't think, by the look of them. More vines on the right, and the grapes definitely are black on these. I'm itching to try one of these black grates, but we're still within sight of dwellings, so I don't think I'd better jump into that one. Well, I have just nipped into that vineyard and tried a couple of the great small pips in them. A little bit of flesh. Not an eating grape, but eatable. And this is the sign I wanted to see. A small crossroads and a pilgrim's cross in wrought iron on a stone base, and La Bourgade, 5 kilometres. It's exactly 10 o'clock now. I hope to be walking into La Bourgade at exactly 11 o'clock. Today will be the end of exactly 3 weeks walking, with the 2 days off getting from Cluny to Aumont-Aubrac via Lyon. Exactly the 3 weeks. Kilometers to Cahors, according to that road sign. Well, the site, I wondered what I thought it was some kind of plant that had been stacked up at a distance. Sort of grey and white and orange. I couldn't think what it was. And I've just come nearer, and it's a whole flock of geese, of doigts, which will become foie. And they've even got them netted in with electrified netting, like electric sheep netting. I think it's electric anyway. And they also seem to be using a kind of movable system of pasturage with the electric fence. They're all sort of wondering what I am doing and who I am, whether it means food or not. They're sort of swaying as a group, and like water almost. They follow. It's a bit of a sort of mixed market garden effort here. There's melons and I think, what is that, cabbages up there? Sweet corn. Yes, there's even a sign here a bit further on. Foie gras confit at 200 meters. And came round the corner just then, and they're walking towards me with a small man in a straw sun hat, blue overalls, and a light cane in his hand, leading his flock of sheep. with the dog beside him, which ran towards me. Pas méchant, pas méchant. And he wasn't. And he told me the way to Cahors. There's a house on the outskirts of La Bourgade here. In good shape still, reasonably good shape. The roof's sound, the walls are sound. Has an adjoining barn, which is also sound. Obviously nothing inside, I'd have thought. And what looks like a decent plot of ground. Faces southwest, I should think. Not bad for someone. I'm beginning to be glad I did accept that ham sandwich from the chef in the auberge, because there's been absolutely nothing in the way of refreshment, alimentation or anything, not even eau potable, up to now in any of the villages. The sandwich it's given me is genuine doorstep size. With this in hand, I wouldn't need anything else to eat today. It's just the drink side of things, but anyway. I'm in 12 kilometres from Cahors, so that shouldn't be too bad. Maybe there's something in this next village, which is on the GR. I'll see, have a look and see in the book. We've got two men working on tractors here. One's ploughing a section, and I can actually smell the earth that's being turned up, coming over on the breeze. And nearer to me, there's a man turning hay, grass. In fact, it was a man who actually waved cheerily at me. I had my back to him as we were both leaving the village. It's the sort of day you can't help being cheerful on, really. Fortunately, I've got my back to the sun this morning. I say fortunately because I've got a patch of weak skin tissue, scar tissue on top of my forehead, and it just won't take the sun without burning immediately. And then of course it peels off and reveals another layer of scar tissue, and it's painful, as it was last night. It's only a small area, but doesn't half hurt if it gets sunburned. Flaujac 3.6. Well, I wonder if there'll be anything in a Flaujac. I doubt it somehow. It doesn't say in the GR book anyway. It's got a nice feel to it round here. It's nothing dramatic, but all the people I've met have been friendly without saying anything. Obviously friendly though. Like the shepherd on the road. I've just waved at the man ploughing. He waved cheerily back. And it does have that, just slightly that upland, moorland, North York Moor feel. There's a little vineyard there. I think they try a bit of everything, probably. They'd have to with this sort of ground. When I think about it, it's time we did see some flipping vineyards. All this Vin de Cahors stuff, and we're almost within half a dozen miles of the place, and I haven't seen a vineyard yet. Not a proper all-out 100% job. This is what I've seen. It's, I think, just for home consumption. Maybe they lie on the other side of the river. Cahors 10. Someone coming extremely fast. Just a young lad with what I imagine he imagines is a highly charged turbo super job on a banger. A lot of noise, not much progress. Paul Remy seems to be everywhere. Paul Remy has an orchestral band called the Music Option, and literally every village I've been to around here for the last several days, I would think, certainly back as far as Espagnac and I think further, Paul Remy has been the name to conjure with. It appears to be a sort of 7 or 8 piece band of fairly youthful performers. They're not all short-haired accordionists or anything like that. And there's a girl as well in the lineup. I'd actually quite like to hear Paul Remy and his bunch having a go. There was a fete in Cahors in the last week in August. I think that was quite fun, probably. It all had its moments. This is Fouchac or wherever it is. I've forgotten the name of it now. Well, we should rejoin the Cahors. Still no cafes, still no alimentation. Anywhere they'll be closed now because it's midday and beyond. So it looks like having to make do with what we've got.